thread. And basically, to sum it up, he is complaining that people are going after him, in his view, but not going after his political opponents. This is something he's complained about for a long time now with the FBI, with the Senate Judiciary Committee, which is obviously Republican controlled. And that is what he's saying now. He's saying, you know, he's accusing Barack Obama and Joe Biden of crimes. He's saying that no Republican Senate Judiciary response, no justice, no FBI, no nothing. So basically, he is complaining because he feels like he is being unfairly targeted, something that, of course, has been a theme of his entire administration. But then he goes on and says this is prosecutorial misconduct. He says, we catch the other side spying on my campaign, the biggest political crime in history, and nothing happens. And then he talks about his achievements so far in office. So clearly the president is not happy with this, even though you heard how Jeffrey is framing this as a win for the president, because it's unlikely that anyone's actually going to see his financial records before voters go to the polls in November. That is not how the president is viewing this today. He is going off on this decision on Twitter. I expect we are going to continue to hear this throughout the morning.
And Caitlin, I mean, it's clear that he thought that this, I mean, it sounds like from reading his tweet that these were slam dunk cases for him. And not to mention the two justices that he appointed, Caitlin, Justice Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh, joining with the majority opinions here.
Yeah, and, you know, everyone, as Chief Justice John Roberts made clear, people, they're not supposed to view judges as by who they're appointed by, but the president certainly does. He's often derided someone as an Obama judge. He views his judges as one of his biggest accomplishments. And, of course, the Supreme Court justices are there at the top of the list. So it is a major blow to the president that those two justices here ruled against him and whether or not he could shield his tax returns, his financial documents in this New York situation. And so that is really notable for how the president is going to view this. And, you know, we've had a lot of talk lately. My colleague Kevin Liptak was reporting that the president wants to put someone else on the Supreme Court. He wants to be able to make that pitch to voters before November. And so I wonder if this is going to up the pressure that the president has said, you know, privately talking about the fact that he wants to put someone else on that court. I think this is only going to fuel that even further.
I think you're right, Caitlin. Thank you very much. Let me is weighing in on this. What's his message?
Yeah, he is re-upping this message that he's been saying for quite some time, saying that he has released 21 years of his tax returns and he is pressuring President Trump to do the same. It's a window into how this becomes a political issue for the president, even though the court does not necessarily force these records to become public or to go to Congress. Biden is essentially saying, what do you have to hide to President Trump? And I think that's what is underlying, the other element of what all of this means. Yes, it is, as Jeffrey has said, a practical victory for President Trump. But as you can see from the president's tweets, he remains concerned about the prospect that this information that he's been trying for many, many years to hide might become public, might become part of a public sphere, and might actually be used against him, whether he is in office or not. He is not over that possibility. This is a president who has been a businessman his whole life, but has always run a private company. It has never been subject to public scrutiny, and the president really wants it to remain that way. For the next 4 months, there will not be a mechanism to force the president to do this, but there will be an enormous amount of political pressure from Biden and from others for the president to show that he is not, in fact, trying to hide something, because obviously he is, based on his tweets, as Caitlin just read, remains incredibly concerned that these investigations going on in New York in particular could have an impact on him near term, long term, whether he is president or out of
point. You know, what are the implications of this, Douglas Brinkley, for the president if he wins a second term or if he is out of office and does not? I'll push people to page 21 in the tax decision, the Vance case and the New York prosecutor case, where the Chief Justice, John Roberts, writes this: 200 years ago, a great jurist of our court established that no citizen, not even the president, is categorically above the common duty to produce evidence when called upon in a criminal proceeding, because that's what this is. We reaffirm that principle today and hold that the president is neither absolutely immune from state criminal subpoenas seeking his private papers, nor entitled to a heightened standard of need. So looking forward, whether he wins the presidency again or not, what does what happens at the lower courts and may ultimately return to this court mean for him?
I find this to be a very dark day for Donald Trump. This is his greatest fear. He has now, Vance has open season on trying to get these documents loose and have a grand jury. Trump has been doing everything and anything to prevent that. We just have to imagine what are in his tax returns, what are in his financial documents, and to know why whenever we get to see them, whenever the public learns about them, it's going to be very difficult for Donald Trump. If Trump loses, he may end up being a stalemate next to Cohen. Who knows where this could lead to? Trump wanted a clean victory here, but I do agree on the short-term political re-election front. Biden's going to be saying, "I released my taxes. You're a coward. What are you covering up, Mr. President? Open up your tax returns. You promised it." That will be going on for the next 4 or 5 months. But Donald Trump now has to live in a state of extreme paranoia that all of his financial records are going to be being opened and looked at in New York. And we're talking about the speed of this, Poppy. I mean, Vance has been waiting and waiting and waiting. He's getting a green light now. They are going to be prioritizing looking into Donald Trump's records. It won't happen before November, but you're looking at if he got reelected and it was president in 2021, this is becoming a dominant story of the year.
Well, that's an important point, that the case in New York has been on hold essentially for a year, and now it picks right back up. Jeffrey Toobin, you said this is a practical win for the president. Douglas Brinkley calls this a dark day for the president. Do you think it's a dark day for the president?
Well, I do think it is certainly unnerving for him, to say the least, that the grand jury in New York is going to get these documents, and they will not get them before November, I think. But they will get them someday. And unlike Congress, which turns over every 2 years and has new priorities and new members, the district attorney, even though they run for re-election every 4 years, the office always continues. So this investigation is going to proceed. And my reading of this opinion is that they're going to get the financial records that they want. And as I say, they will not get them before November, and they won't be publicly disclosed unless there's an actual public trial, but they are going to get these records. And that has to be extremely unnerving for the president. And as we can see from his tweets, he is in a rage about that. But if we are viewing these two cases, particularly the congressional case, through a political prism, it is a win for the president because he will be able to hide his tax returns, unlike any other presidential candidate in the modern era, for one more election. And that is a victory for him. And even if he's not expressing happiness about it, it's still a victory for him.